Stick around to the end of the video for a channel update. Don't worry, it's a good update, nothing bad has happened, but I think it's best to save that for the end of the video, so if you're interested in that, stick around after the end of the video. Gaming can be a very expensive hobby. Not only are the consoles themselves at least $500 nowadays, you still have to buy the games themselves, which in the past few years have been getting more and more expensive. $70 is the new standard price for a AAA game, and Nintendo has several games on the Switch too that they charge $80 for. Needless to say, it's very easy to spend a lot of money on video games. But if for some reason you want to spend even more money, then I have the thing for you. Collector's Editions. Ah, the not so humble Collector's Edition. These usually cost at least twice what the normal version of a game does, but a lot of them are upwards of $200 or even more than that. The whole selling point of a Collector's Edition is of course that they come with physical bonuses, collectibles, on top of the game itself. There are a couple of really common types of collectibles that they'll include, like steelbook cases, art books, and statues, but the sky is the limit and there are some really cool and creative collector's editions out there. But for every really cool collector's edition that's out there, there's another that's a complete waste of money. Those are the ones I want to talk about today. The collector's editions that I think are the dumbest, the worst, and overall the biggest wastes of money. And just as a disclaimer, since I don't own 90% of these collector's editions, I'll likely end up using footage from other people's unboxing videos to show what I'm talking about. Everyone whose footage I use will be credited on screen in the corner and in the description below the video. Now, I don't really buy collector's editions of video games, at least not when they're new. If I can find them for a good price used and in good condition, then I'll consider picking one up. And there's a good reason that I don't buy collector's editions new anymore, and it's because I was so let down by the first one that I bought that I've never spent $200 on another one. And I really don't think there's any better place to kick this video off with than that collector's edition. But first, a little bit of context. Call of Duty Black Ops 3 has a really good collector's edition. Hell, it's got a fantastic collector's edition, one of the best in my opinion. The Juggernog edition. For $200, this thing came with a steelbook, coasters, the season pass, and the Big Kahuna, a functional mini fridge modeled after a Juggernog perk machine from Call of Duty Zombies. This is probably my favorite video game collector's edition ever, especially as a huge COD Zombies fan. I just wish I could afford to get one, since the Juggernog mini fridge has become the holy grail collector's item for COD Zombies fans, with the complete collector's edition running you at least $1,000 nowadays, but upwards of $3,000 for a sealed edition. I was only 10 when Black Ops 3 released. Even if I knew about the Juggernog edition before it came out, which I didn't, I probably wouldn't have been able to afford it. Then in the spring of 2018, Black Ops 4 was announced along with its collector's edition, the Mystery Box edition. Black Ops 4 marked the 10th anniversary of the Zombies game mode, and Zombies would be getting a new storyline, the Chaos Story, which is what most of this collection was themed around. 12-year-old me knew I could miss out on this one, especially with how expensive the Juggernog edition had become in the several years since Black Ops 3 released. With my 13th birthday that August, I cut a deal with my parents. They would pre-order me the Black Ops 4 Collector's Edition as a birthday present, but that was all I would get from them that year for my birthday. Now that seemed like a great deal to me, but in hindsight, it was not. The game finally launched in October and I got my Collector's Edition. And to be fair, it did come with a good variety of different collectibles. There's a nice set of posters that I actually still have up in my room to this day, the steelbook case, the first issue of the Chaos Story Zombies comic book, a puzzle that I don't think I ever actually got in mine, they stiffed me on the puzzle. There's a lot of stuff in this edition, but the main selling point was the titular mystery box, and it is just a box that lights up and plays sound when you open it. I don't know what I was expecting, since that's pretty much what the mystery box does in game, and to be fair, it is a really cool looking box. The attention to detail is really nice. It's modeled after the mystery box from the Chaos Story Zombies maps, which is a lot cooler looking than the standard wooden crate with question marks on it that features in most of the Zombies maps that take place in the Ether story, which is the main popular storyline for the mode that spanned from World at War up through Black Ops 4. But the mystery box just does not live up to the Juggernog mini fridge at all. I ended up just using mine to store cables, which I guess is still a practical use, but I would much rather a fridge so I could keep my Dr. Pepper cold. The Black Ops 4 Mystery Box Edition is by no means the worst collector's edition for a game ever made, but it's the one that personally disappointed me, so I knew I just had to include it in this video, and I think it's a good place to start with. But Black Ops 4 isn't the only lackluster Call of Duty collector's edition. Probably the most infamous of them all is Call of Duty World at Wars. This was right after Call of Duty really exploded with COD 4 the previous year, so the collector's editions weren't very elaborate yet. This one comes with the game and some day one bonuses for multiplayer to give you an edge, like some double XP time and an early unlock for the FG42. The big, fat, notorious piece of junk that came with this version of the game is a canteen-shaped flask that says Call of Duty World at War on the front. Now, including a canteen isn't really a bad idea. Canteens are a super iconic piece of just, standard issue World War II equipment and would be a nice and easy to produce item for a small collector's edition like this was. And a canteen would be nice since canteens have an actual practical use outside of just being displayed, which most collector's edition items are only for display. Oddly enough, some of the Yakuza games, like Yakuza 4 and 6, have good examples of small collector's editions that don't come with much, but what they do come with is actual stuff you can use in your day-to-day life. Yakuza 4's Ichiban box came with an exclusive bowl instead of metal chopsticks, and Yakuza 6's came with a set of exclusive coasters, whiskey glasses, and whiskey stones, since, all the characters drink whiskey in those games, so it's a nice kind of collector's edition for a more adult audience. It's cool. World at War's canteen had the opportunity to be along these lines. Maybe not something you take out camping with you, but something you could, definitely use to drink water. Yeah, you can't drink water from it since the cap is glued to the canteen. Apparently the canteen even has some trouble standing up straight too, so the best place to display it is inside the foam casing, which is the side of the steelbook case, where people can't see the canteen because it's inside of the case. Yeah, there's the reason this thing has become the butt of so many jokes over the last 18 years or so. But there's an especially bad form of collector's edition that has become more and more frequent as of late, which is collector's editions that don't even include the actual game itself. And the main example that comes to mind for me when it comes to this is Borderlands 4, which is also the most recent game I'll be talking about in this video. Nowadays, I'm a very casual Borderlands fan. I love Borderlands 2 and especially the pre-sequel, since that was my first one in the series that I played, but I never replayed Borderlands 3, never finished Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and never even bought Borderlands 4. It's just a series I've kind of fallen out of love with over the last few years. But my cousin Eric is a huge fan of Borderlands. It is easily one of, if not just outright, his favorite video game series ever. So obviously he pre-ordered Borderlands 4 and is going to pre-order Borderlands 4's $150 Echo 4 Collector's Edition. At first glance, $150 seems like a steal for everything you get. There's an 8-inch light-up statue of Echo 4, 4 posters, a cloth map, a necklace, and a code for 5 golden keys to open up the shift chest in wherever that game's main hub city is. I don't know, again, I never played it. Aside from that last one, these are all some really cool bonuses. But as you can probably guess, since I kind of already spoiled the twist, that is all you get with this bundle. If you read the very fine print at the bottom, you will see game not included, which was a huge disappointment to my cousin since if he wanted to get the version of the game that came with all the extra DLCs and season pass and bonuses as well, he would have ended up paying an extra $130 on top of the $150 for the physical collector's edition. Needless to say, he passed on the collector's edition and just got the game, but thankfully according to him, the game was really good and he had a ton of fun playing it. But like I said, this isn't just a Borderlands 4 problem. Plenty of other games have had a collector's edition that is just a bunch of bonuses without actually including the game. The only reason I can imagine someone liking these is if they just need a digital copy of the game instead of a physical one, like if they have a digital-only PS5 or the Xbox Series S. But even then, those consoles are more geared towards casual gamers who I don't think would really be buying very many collector's editions to begin with, which makes these kind of feel useless and, like they're trying to just nickel and dime you for as much as possible. But a lot of the time, the worst offenders when it comes to bad collector's editions are when the centerpiece item of the bundle is cheap or really poor quality. Oh wait, hang on, Metal Gear Solid Delta? What are you doing here? Metal Gear Solid Delta was the highly anticipated remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 that dropped this past fall. Metal Gear Solid 3 is the fan favorite game of the Metal Gear series, so this remake had a lot of hype behind it, and at the same time had some really big shoes to fill. Thankfully, the game itself was really good, and a great remake at that. It was very faithful to the original game, and it works as a great new way to play Metal Gear Solid 3 while also not trying to replace the original. Thankfully, the original game is still very easily accessible through the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection. The collector's edition for the game was incredibly lacking though, which sucks because this is one that I was actually pretty heavily considering getting a couple of years ago when the pre-orders first, were made available for it. I couldn't get a pre-order in back then though because they were all bought by scalpers, which honestly is probably for the best considering how it turned out. The European and Japanese collector's edition is actually really cool, and the bust of Snake that it includes is very high quality looking. The North American collector's edition, on the other hand, the one that I didn't get, was very lacking to say the least. The centerpiece of this edition is a diorama of a scene that happens right in the beginning of the game after Snake's iconic Halo jump into the Soviet jungle. And this isn't exactly my first choice of a scene to make a diorama out of. If I was the one who's deciding, I think I would pick his salute at the end of the game right before the credits roll, or maybe him and his fight with the boss, the final boss fight of the game. But that's just me. This is still a pretty iconic scene and, makes a cool diorama. On paper. When the game came out and the special edition shipped out, the people who paid $200 for this collector's box were incredibly disappointed to see the quality, or lack of quality, on the diorama, especially the little figure of Naked Snake. John Metal Gear here has incredibly poor quality printing, and he just looks super cheap. Snake's not very solid looking.
No, that is not Solid Snake.
This one just stings worse because the collector's edition that released overseas in Europe and Asia was just so much higher quality. It goes to show that Konami could have made the diorama look better had they not cheaped out, but they did, which is pretty typical of them. And I really feel bad for people who bought this collector's edition, like normal people, not scalpers. I'm happy that the scalpers can't make money off of this, but anyways, yeah, these things do not hold their value at all, or they did not hold their value. Don't get me wrong, I am not condoning scalping in the slightest, but one of the nice things about getting a collector's edition for a game is that a lot of the time they hold their value. So if you end up deciding to sell it down the line, you'll usually get at least a good chunk of your money back, if not make more money than what you spent on buying it. But this collector's edition is only a couple months old, and you can already find it for $90 really easily. It is not, like, it's worth less than half of what it was new. But Metal Gear Solid Delta isn't the only game to, shall we say, exaggerate the quality of the items in their collector's edition, it's far from it. Probably the single most infamous example of this is Fallout 76 and its Power Armor edition with its canvas bag. Fallout 76's launch was absolutely horrible, you just had to be there to see it. Personally, I never even gave the game a second chance. Despite all the new updates and expansions it's gotten in the years since it came out, it was just so rough at launch that it completely turned me off from ever coming back to it. There was so much drama revolving the game, and one of the biggest, especially at launch, was the Collector's Edition. This thing came with two main collectibles. The main item and namesake for the bundle was a replica T-51B Power Armor helmet. I'm honestly disappointed that this wasn't the Power Armor helmet that got recalled because they had mold growing inside of them. That was a whole separate piece of merchandise from the time, and a whole separate rabbit hole that I could go down. But it just would have been so Bethesda of Bethesda to mess up both main collector's items in their collector's edition for their hot new game. The other, more infamous one was a West Tech themed canvas duffel bag. The marketing made it seem like a pretty high quality canvas duffel bag. I mean, it literally said in the marketing that if you bought this version of the game, you'd be getting a canvas bag. Obviously though, that didn't happen. Instead of canvas, they are really cheap nylon bags. If this had happened for any other game, it probably wouldn't have been as huge of a deal. Sure, people would still be really upset, but I doubt it would have turned into such a huge scandal. But Fallout 76 was just so busted and just failed so much at living up to the expectations at launch that it turned into one of the biggest, if not the biggest, of Bethesda's publicity nightmares, possibly ever. Sure, Starfield's launch was really underwhelming, but I don't think that game ever got quite the level of vitriol towards it that Fallout 76 did, and the Collector's Edition and the lack of the bag was just the cherry on top. Sometimes though, a Collector's Edition does live up to the hype and is disappointing for other reasons, as is the case with our next example, Batman Arkham Knight's Batmobile Edition. It's no secret that I love the Batman Arkham games. Minus Suicide Squad, of course. I never even wasted my money on that one to try it out. If you go back a few years on my channel to when I was still finding out what I wanted to do with it, you'll even find a couple videos relating to the Arkham series that I made. They're some of my favorite video games ever and are what really made me into the die-hard Batman fan that I am nowadays. That being said, Arkham Knight is my least favorite in the series. I think the gameplay is outstanding, but I find the story a little on the lacking side. Although picking a least favorite Arkham game is like picking your least favorite child. It's, like impossible to do. One of the areas though where Arkham Knight excels compared to the rest of the games is in the Collector's Edition department. Arkham Knight was intended to launch with the Batmobile Collector's Edition, which makes sense as the Batmobile was the main new gameplay feature that was added in Knight. This edition would have contained some pretty standard stuff for a superhero game Collector's Edition. A comic book, an art book, a steel book. Wow, that's a lot of books. But the piece de resistance for this edition was supposed to be this awesome statue of the Batmobile that could transform between the normal Batmobile and the Batmobile's tank mode with the press of a button on a little key fob that came with the statue. It has lights and lots of moving parts and just tons of little details. It's really cool. The statue looks absolutely stunning and would be an awesome centerpiece of any Batman Arkham fan's collection. You're probably thinking, whoa, this collector's edition looks awesome. So you're probably thinking, why did it end up in this video talking about the worst collector's editions? Well, it's because Rocksteady Games pulled the plug on this edition because the Batmobile statues didn't live up to the quality standards that they wanted to meet. And honestly, good on Rocksteady for that. We've already seen what happens when these collector's editions launch and don't live up to the quality expectations that people had for them. The problem is that Rocksteady pulled the plug on the Batmobile edition just 5 days before Arkham Knight was set to launch. So anyone who pre-ordered that edition was just shit out of luck. Although thankfully they did all get refunds. I can just imagine how much it would have stung to be looking forward to getting that Batmobile statue only to have the rug pulled out from under you at the last minute. Again, that's why I consider this one of the worst, is that it was just cancelled so close to launch with basically no warning whatsoever. Thankfully, with the edition having been cancelled so close to launch, a good number of them were made and basically just waiting to be shipped out, so a handful of them have ended up on the secondhand market and in the hands of YouTubers, like Batman Arkham Videos, who's the GOAT and whose footage I'll be using for background footage. But this isn't the Arkham series' only entry with the bad Collector's Edition. Arkham Asylum's Collector's Edition is pretty bad too, and that one actually got released. Since Arkham Asylum was the first game in the series, it was no guarantee that the game would be a success, so its Collector's Edition is pretty low-key and small. You got an exclusive case, but not a steelbook case, mind you, a cardboard and plastic digipack case that is supposed to look like a folder belonging to Dr. Young, who's one of the game's main villains. The one upside of this, cardboard case is that the game discs are unique for this edition, with them being printed to look like one of the audio reels that you find in-game. There's also a behind-the-scenes DVD, which those are cool to see too. The one other cool thing in this edition is an Arkham Doctor's Journal, which acts as a lore book and also an art book that showcases Carlos Diendo's outstanding artwork that was made for the game. The main collectible in this edition is a scale replica of one of Batman's Batarangs from the game, and as you can probably guess, it's the Batarang that gets a lot of the flack with this edition. For starters, it's fused to the display stand, which, it kind of makes sense why, since Rocksteady probably didn't want people throwing around a hunk of plastic and potentially hurting someone. By making the whole thing one solid piece instead, they made it so that you'll just have to throw the whole thing around instead. Seriously though, the main problem with the Batarang statue is that it just looks really cheap. The statue comes pre-scratched and scuffed, which is apparently supposed to make it look more worn and used by Batman. Instead, it just makes the Batarangs look like they were cheaply made, which to be fair, they probably were. Again, Rocksteady and WB had no idea how successful this game would be, so they didn't splurge on the collector's edition. The scratches and the scuffs just make this thing look used, but not in the way that Rocksteady wanted it to look used. Like used as in like you got it secondhand from your local game store because someone, sold it to them and they're selling it to you. On the bright side, this thing only costs $100 at launch, which nowadays is really cheap for a collector's edition. And compared to a lot of other modern collector's editions, the crappy Batarang really isn't all that bad, but this is one that caused a decent bit of controversy among Batman fans back in 2009 when it dropped, and even to this day you'll still see some people bringing this one up. Superhero games in general seem to be a little hit or miss with the collector's editions. Some are awesome, like Spider-Man 2018's and its statue, not the 19 inches of Venom. That one is really cool, but again, that collector's edition I find a little lacking since it didn't come with the game. But even lackluster superhero games like Gotham Knights sometimes have really cool collector's editions that look really high quality. Sadly for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is apparently both a very lackluster game and has a very lackluster, dare I even say one of the most infamous, collector's editions. Now I've said before that I'm not the biggest fighting game fan in the world. I mostly stick to Mortal Kombat, Injustice, and the occasional anime fighting game. So I've never played Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, but I know it's got a pretty bad reputation. It's pretty well agreed upon by fans that it's the worst game in that series. But really, this game should have been a home run, since it came out at the perfect time. Capcom was obviously doing very well in 2017, not as well as they've been doing the last couple of years with games like Devil May Cry 5, Street Fighter 6, and the last few Resident Evil games all being smash hits. The real perfect timing thing that Infinite had going for it was that it came out when the MCU was at its peak popularity. For context, the game came out in September of 2017, and Infinity War came out just that next April, so only a couple months away. As such, the collector's edition of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite capitalizes on that hype. It comes with 4 statues, but the main reason people went out to pre-order this thing is that it also came with a set of replica Infinity Stones. Well, the comic version, which I think are technically the Infinity Gems, not to sound like a nerd. But these were a great way to hype people for the game and the collector's edition, since obviously Thanos was the big bad of the MCU at the time. So anything Thanos or Infinity Stone related would get people really excited and get people spending their money. And so people pre-ordered the collector's edition. And as you can probably guess since it's in this video, it was a bit of a mixed bag. The 4 included statues were fine, albeit they look worse than they are advertised as, but that's kind of to be expected. The statues aren't horrible though. The real disappointment in this set was the Infinity Gems. In the promotional image, they look, well, like gemstones. They're transparent, they even look a little beveled. But I think that's just the light reflecting off them, since the Infinity Gems are all smooth and uniform, unlike the stones in the MCU. But when the gems arrived, they were even worse than anyone could have ever imagined. Online, these things are usually referred to as the Infinity Eggs, since they're so cheap that they ended up looking like those plastic Easter eggs you see around Easter. They don't even have any transparency to them, which I guess makes them more accurate to the gems in the comics, which are opaque, but again, they just look so cheap looking. These things became a real laughingstock at the time, and even nowadays, if you go onto Reddit threads or just posts online asking people what they think is the worst collector's edition or collector's edition item for a video game, the Infinity Eggs are gonna be one of the first ones you see mentioned, alongside Fallout 76 in its canvas bag. So there you have it, some of the worst video game collector's editions and collector's edition items that I could personally think of. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I don't really buy collector's editions often, mostly because they can just be so hit or miss. But there are plenty of bad collector's editions that I didn't discuss, since if I did, this could easily have spiraled into like a 2-hour video, and I need to make a smaller video to get back into the swing of things. If there are any notable examples that you feel like I forgot to mention, please feel free to leave a comment, since I'd love to learn which ones I missed. Anyways, channel update time. Alright, so I finished my semester a week and a half ago, but it'll probably be closer to like 2.5 weeks ago by the time this video gets released. This past semester was super busy for me. I finished it out with like a 3.75 GPA, but in order to do well, I had to invest most of my free time into working on projects and homework for school. So I definitely feel like I've been neglecting this channel for the past few months, only releasing 2 videos during the semester. Granted, they were like an hour and 25 minutes long each, but still, I wish I could have made more these last few months. Thankfully, I should be able to get back into investing a lot of time into this channel this summer, and I hopefully want to take it to the next level. I also got a part-time job this summer, and the schedule for that leaves me plenty of time throughout the week to work on videos, which I'm super excited for. I'm super thankful. It's like a perfect thing I got going on. And even when school starts up again at the end of the summer, this next semester will not be anywhere near as busy as this last one, since I only have 2 more courses I need to complete to finish the program that I'm in. So I should still have lots of free time in the fall and in the winter to work on YouTube. But yeah, I'm just super excited for the summer and what I'm going to be able to do with the channel. Hopefully I can get the channel to a point where I can afford to do it full-time year-round, but that's still obviously a bit of a ways off. Regardless, I'm super thankful to everyone for watching my videos and for sticking around even when I'm not posting too frequently, as it just means a ton that I have, people who care about my videos and what I'm putting out there. I feel so lucky. I feel so blessed. I'm more than likely going to hit 10,000 subscribers this summer, especially if I start posting more frequently again, so I've got some ideas kicking around for a 10K subscriber special, which I'll keep you guys posted about. But now I'm getting a bit off topic, so I'm going to wrap things up. As always, consider leaving a like and subscribing if you enjoyed the video, as it's a great way to help out the channel and show your support. Peace out and God bless. I'm Tactic Zombies, and I'll see you next time.
Yeah, cause I got it like that. Flow so smooth like I got it on tap. Yeah, and I'ma say it be a good night while I'm on my Yingling, while I'm drinking Bud Light. Can you get it when you miss me?